Hi friends, Brenda here from the Pop-Up Homestead. I thought I'd take you along. I'm going to take these apples and make them into applesauce. And I thought if anyone wanted to learn how to make applesauce, they could come along. So it's pretty simple. You need a pot. You need a knife. You need apples. And then something to put the peels and core in. So all I'm doing basically is taking this apple, cutting it up. See, I took the core out and I peeled it. And then all I do is just chop it into chunks, as large or as small as you want. Put it in the pot. You're going to take the skins and you're going to put them in here. And the skins and the cores can be fed to your livestock. If you have chickens, if you have sheep or goats, anything like that. Or you can compost it. Or even better, you can take that and you can put it in a jar with some water and a little cheesecloth over the top and make apple cider vinegar. So a lot of times that's what'll happen with the remnants. Either it'll go to the chickens or you'll make apple cider vinegar. So basically I'm going to chop these all up, peeled and cored, and then I'll bring you back at the stove and you can see how we make these chunks of apple into applesauce. I will say, some apple varieties are better than others. You can use, these are Jonah Golds, which every time I use the Jonah Golds, it makes me think of Sweet Gretchen from Bright and Eggert. She always loved the Jonah Golds. You can use Jonah Max, Macintosh, Cortland, Empire. You don't want to use apples like Granny Smith. They would be a little sour. You don't really want to use a Red Delicious. They're a little too dry. They're more of an eating apple. So these dual purpose apples work really good for applesauce. So I will bring you right back. Let me just chop up these two apples and then I will show you the cooking process. So when we get to the stove, you're going to need a potato masher and a spoon. Pretty easy. I'll see you in a minute. You know what else I didn't mention? Is you can also do this exact same process with pears. So you can make pear sauce, pear butter, apple butter. All starts the same way. To be honest with you, if I'm making a big batch of applesauce, I won't core these. I won't peel these. I just chop them up into quarters and throw them in the pot and cook them down that way. And then I use a food mill. So that's just because I'm a little lazy. But if I'm just doing a bowl of applesauce or just a demonstration on how to make applesauce, just so that if you're making it for the first time, you can see how you get the right consistency. So just chopping it up, taking the peels off. Takes just a few minutes, not real time consuming. I often steal a chunk or two while I'm chopping. You can also use an apple peeler, which I have, and I've used many times. You stick the apple on the end and it peels. It peels and slices and cores all at once. It's a pretty cool little tool. The reason I'm not using that is because I just want to show you how you can simply make applesauce without a bunch of fancy equipment. So you don't need a food mill. You don't need an apple peeler. You just literally need a knife and a pot, cutting board, if you want to use a cutting board. I prefer to use a cutting board. So I got one more to go. You may want to fast forward through this part. It's not overly exciting. Just chopping up a couple apples. So I would love to know in the comments if anyone else uses a food mill or an apple corer. And let me know if you've made applesauce. And what do you put in your applesauce? Because some people make it just straight, you know, where they don't add any cinnamon, sugar, nutmeg, clove. Other people just add cinnamon. Some people add a little maple syrup to sweeten it up. But you don't have to. You can just literally do apples, a little bit of water, and make the applesauce. So, I mean, I like mine with a little cinnamon. Not too much. For this small pot, I'll probably put, see a little bit how much is in there. I'll probably put a couple teaspoons of cinnamon, and that'll sufficiently flavor it just to have a bowl of applesauce in the fridge. What I'm making here with 3 apples is enough for like a side dish for dinner. You know, it's not like I'm doing 3 or 4 bushels of apples and then I'm gonna can it all. So I'm just doing a little, just to make a little bowl applesauce for the fridge. Nice side dish. Seasonal. Love eating fresh fruit. So I'd love to know what you guys are working on this fall. If you're making applesauce, if you're making apple butter. I've also taken apples and sliced them up with seasoning and put them in a freezer bag and made apple pie filling. So I'll make it, and I know you can it, but I usually just put it in a bag and freeze it. And then in the middle of winter, when it's kind of cold and gloomy, or Thanksgiving or whenever I want it, I'll pull that out, make a pie crust quick, let the apple pie filling thaw from the freezer, and then I'll pour it into the shell and have a ready-made apple pie from fresh, locally grown apples. So that's always nice. And basically, to make apple pie filling, you're just, instead of making chunks, I would go and I would make slices like this, right? So more of a slice instead of a chunk, but totally up to you. You're driving this train if you're making your own apple pie filling. So apple pie filling, I put in a little bit of sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, and just a little bit of flour. And I warm that all up, mix it together, slice up the apples, put it in the mix, work it warm in the mix for 3 or 4 minutes until it all gets nicely coated. And then I'll let it cool, put it in the bag, and freeze it. Okay, let's go to the stove. Okay, so we're on the stove. And I have the apples on low heat. And medium low, and I added a little bit of water. 3 apples, I put maybe 1/8 of a cup. Clean filtered rainwater that went through the Berkey. I got cinnamon, got a potato masher, and I'm going to sweeten mine with a little maple syrup. So I don't put the maple syrup in, and I don't put the cinnamon in until the apples are good and soft. So I can cover them and they will soften faster because basically you're cooking the apples. So I'm going to put a lid on there and cook them. And then every now and again I'll go in and mash them. So I'll bring you back when they're a little softer. It takes maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes at the most. Okay, I'll be right back. Yeah, having the lid on really helps. Helps them soften up. You can see they're already mushing up a little bit. A couple more minutes. Let's see how we're looking. See how it changes? So at this point, see, I'd probably turn the heat off because I'm going to leave it a little chunky. And it's already pretty hot. See how beautiful that looks? So, just going to let it cool a little bit. And then I'm going to add my cinnamon. And a little bit of maple syrup. And then once it's cool enough, it'll go into a bowl, into the fridge, and we can have it with dinner tonight. I could also put it in a Ziploc baggie and freeze it. Or I could set it up to can it. Now, obviously, I didn't make that much, so I'm not going to can it, but easy peasy, applesauce. All right, hold on. I'll be right back. Let me add the cinnamon and the syrup. It is tasty. I did taste it already. So, for 3 apples, I put in a teaspoon of maple syrup and a teaspoon of cinnamon. It's still steaming hot. I don't know if you can see the steam. But, yeah, so this is a chunky applesauce. If you wanted it to be smoother, you could put an immersion blender in it and blend it up. Or you could just let it cook a little longer, low and slow, and it'll get completely smooth. I like a little bit of chunk in it. But, yeah, so I'm just going to let this sit out and cool and put a lid on. I do have a bonus for you, though. So, those apple cores, I put them in this gallon jar. I filled it up with clean filtered water. And I am going to make apple cider vinegar. So, here I'm going to share this recipe in the book with you. And this is from Stacy from Off Grid with Doug and Stacy, how to make your own apple cider vinegar. So you need a gallon jug, organic apples, right? Or scraps, which I use the scraps, and then a cup of sugar. So I gotta go get a cup of sugar. I'm all out of sugar in the cabin. So from there, if I had the sugar in it, you don't want to put a hard lid on it because you want it to breathe. So I used an old t-shirt that I cut up into little squares. And then from there, I just put the lid, hold on. Sometimes you just need 2 hands. So I just screw down the band for a small mouth lid over the t-shirt so it can still breathe. Now once I add the sugar and stir it in here and get it dissolved, this is going to ferment, and it's going to have a chemical reaction with the apples, and this will get all bubbly. And I'm going to leave it there and make apple cider vinegar. And hopefully you were able to stop this video and get the information. You know what? There's a little bit more on the next page. I'll just hold it there so you can screenshot that too. I mean, apple cider vinegar is so expensive, and it's literally made with apple scraps. So if you're interested, I highly recommend that you go to Off Grid with Doug and Stacy and go to Stacy's Remedies for Health, Home, and Body with a Smile. It's a great book, and we got this when we went to see them in Missouri, and it was a great event, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so there you go. There's your bonus. Apple cider vinegar along with homemade applesauce. So let me know in the comments below if you have questions about this applesauce, if there was anything I left out. I've been making this for, I don't know, 30 years, so I may have overlooked something that would be a common question. And yeah, it'll keep in the fridge for a good week or 2, but I doubt it'll last a day or 2. Anyhow, take care, my seedy friends. Bye.